Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Broadcom series that we're doing here at OTAVA. I'm Brian Hokelman. I'm VP of Product and Business Development, and today I'm joined by Justin Keller, who's VP over Technology and Engineering. So, welcome, Justin. How you doing, bud?
Oh, not too bad. Having a pretty good day here.
What we want to talk to you about today is just some of the technical and engineering considerations that we all have to have relative to the transition from the classic VMware environments and partner program to the Broadcom Advantage program and some of the changes that Broadcom's driving into the market. So I really wanted your perspective because I know us, OTAVA as a service provider, we've been forced to kind of go back and refactor the architecture, kind of make sure that we're optimized on the architecture, we've got the right density, and we were ultimately driving towards the performance of the architecture and trying to mitigate any cost increases in that environment. So I think I want to talk about VCF first. Can you tell us a little bit about we know that VCF is a package, a bundled offer that requires basically that clients don't just buy a vSphere license and bolt on, incremental add-ons. They have to kind of take down the whole bundle, which is great because there's some added functionality. So let's talk a little bit about that as far as new capabilities that clients are going to get around NSX, ARIA, which is vRealize in the new form and fashion, and some of the firewalling. How do you think about that from an engineering and an architecture perspective? Does that streamline deployment, monitoring, all the things that we do as a service provider?
Correct. Yes. So thinking about VCF from that bundled SKU perspective, it forces you to take into account some other architectural changes, right? So before, right, building a vSphere environment was very piecemeal and what do you want and what pieces you want to use. Now you can still approach it that way, but it doesn't make sense in the long run financially to do so, right? You want to kind of consider utilizing all those pieces that you just said, right? You want to build in NSX and ARIA operations, ARIA login site, those types of features into your plan because it doesn't make sense to pay for another piece of software to do those pieces. Um, for us, the other big thing is definitely, as you said, density. There is a density challenge there, right? For a lot of providers or other enterprise consumers, they might not have had the densest hosts and they might have, scaled out, right? More hosts, less dense. And now you kind of get penalized for that where before you did not. So some factors there. Um, yeah, I mean, I think from a normal vSphere environment, from a technical performance perspective, you're still meeting all those same things as far as storage and compute IO and managing CPU ready. But you want to take into account those new density factors, utilizing some of those additional feature sets and products that maybe you weren't before.
Excellent. Yeah, so it is, and from the product side of the house, we're also evaluating how we kind of position, package, and deliver products and price them out to the market. So I think it's forcing change on both sides. I was an observer of the SWAT team that you assembled to make some of those changes around VCF. Big effort. And can you give us some perspective on how you uh, looked at the inventory, started to move things around? Was there a lot of reusability that you could do as you kind of updated the density? Did you have to buy new hardware? Give us a little background on kind of what you discovered and how you implemented the architecture.
Yeah. So one of the big things a lot of service providers do, and even large enterprises, is they will build to grow, which before you would still have to pay licensing on, but it wasn't, you weren't penalized as much as you are under the new licensing structure. So as per that, we built large clusters that were very scaled out with lots of hosts. And because of the way the service provider licensing worked before, We didn't really pay for that in VMware licensing prior to this change. Now, holding on to a bunch of those hosts, keeping them in inventory, keeping them online is detrimental to us. So first thing we did was identify what hosts can we remove, take out of vCenters, put in standby, and say, hey, we've got these on the shelf, ready to go. If we need to expand quickly, we can, but we're not going to pay for those right now. Second to that is now, right, kind of phase two, how we did it is, okay, where is that density? Where are we going to get penalized for that new CPU core floor, right? We had hosts that were less than 16 cores per socket. Can we swap those out with ones that are, shrink down clusters, again, optimize that so we're not paying for more? And that was really the big driver on our end for this initial piece, was get that density down, replace hosts, and take out anything we could put into standby, shove off to the side, keep it on the line so that we can bring it in quickly if we need to expand, but not pay for those committed CPU cores up front. And
Right.
then went into, now what host can we go back, refresh into a more dense footprint, pay less on those.
Yeah, it was a big project. The team did a great job there.
Yeah, they did a
Well,
fantastic job.
yeah, as a Broadcom Advantage premier partner, we're now engaging with a lot of registered tier partners. So the program structure changed. The Go Forward Advantage program has about 500 partners in it, and then the ability to white label and provide other services to registered tier customers, or what I'll call sub CSPs, who are going to work through OTAVA now. And so, give me a little perspective on what you anticipate from their design and architecture from a refresh perspective or re-architecting perspective. Is what we went through pretty common, or are a lot of these sub CSPs going to have to go through that same journey?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's the big one they're going to run into is, previous, the way us partners paid for things was literally just utilized RAM. So if I put 30 hosts into a cluster, if I only had 100 gigs of RAM used, it didn't matter. I didn't pay additional licensing for making that cluster large. So a lot of providers I think out there are going to be in that same boat. They're going to have large clusters ready for growth, and now they're going to have to reduce those and make plans to how they're going to control, forecast growth, forecast their scaling, and how they're going to do it quickly with not having those hosts immediately available. There's a lot of tools that'll help with that, right? SDDC Manager is part of VCF, and implementing that can help control that and dynamically move around resources to clusters so that you can still be agile, still grow quickly, still support a customer base while you're not paying, increased licensing under this new license structure. Um, you're going to see a lot of providers struggle with that. I mean, it can be a very capital heavy lift if you don't have, you know, a lot of free hosts that you can migrate around or optimize into new clusters so you can increase those core counts.
Yeah, I think it's great how proactive your team was, and I know that there's a lot of organizations going through these same
Yeah.
concerns and trying to optimize and modernize their architecture. But one of the things that we're all struggling with, I think, out in the community, in the Broadcom ecosystem, having to adopt the VCF licenses, start to transact through the Broadcom portal. And there's obviously some gaps there. So we're all in this together. We're all going to be compliant for a given period of time. But Broadcom VMware is still going to be billing us for April usage, right? And they're going to be using the existing usage meters that we all have deployed in our infrastructure. Talk a little bit about, we don't know a lot about this right now, but give us your perspective on how you think, is it BAU just as far as the usage meters go? And then is there a flash cut that you expect to the new usage meters as we adopt the VCF model?
So for providers that are currently on usage meter 4.7 and above, I think 4.8 is the latest. It's business as usual. You don't have to really do anything. That's supposed to move over into the new Broadcom portal and get billed out of there. The new usage meter has a structure to measure the new CPU core metric versus the utilized RAM metric that it was using before. Um, but the big one will be for those sub CSPs because they're going to have to get with their new um, white label partner, whoever that happens to be, and they'll have to install a new usage meter from that partner to do the metering on their environment that reports up through their partner. Um, with that, there's some changes we have to do if you're taking on a sub CSP, where you have to register and define those usage meters and what those registered partners are when you build that into the new commerce portal. Right now, that's a little gray area because the commerce portal that existed through VMware isn't accessible yet, and getting into the new Broadcom one is still a little hazy. So more to come on that, but that'll be kind of the new play is that you'll have to get your new partner, get a new usage meter installed, get that linked up and registered properly in reporting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because oh yeah, the dog's here. I knew at some point during this episode we would have some sort of animal traversing
Yep,
your background. So that's awesome. One of the interesting things that I think were that a lot of customers and prospects are asking us questions about is the fact that hey, I'm registering, I'm getting into these new portals, I'm not seeing anything, and you and I have been on some calls where we're comparing notes on what's still in the VMware partner portal and what is or is not in the Broadcom
right.
portal, and there's just a lot of gaps. So I think the point
Yep,
is you're not alone. This is going to be an interesting 45 days ish until we get
it
some of
will.
that clarity. So we're going down that path. We're also getting a lot of questions around firewalling.
Hmm.
So we've leveraged NSX, we've leveraged other VMware firewalls. We even have some virtualized deployments of third party firewalls. Um, Tell us a little bit about how you view the new Broadcom firewall SKU, the firewall ATP SKU, threat protection SKU, and then licensing and how we're going to be quoting and asking customers to pay for that.
Yeah. So under that new model, there is, and I still break it down into two, right? There's distributed firewall and there's gateway
Right.
firewall, right? Whether you're doing ATP or not really changes the price point, but doesn't really change how you pay for it or how it's counted. So I look at it from that model. In my suggestion right now is to most people, depending on what they're doing and how their environments are deployed, gateway firewall is the easiest. It's most like NSXV and how architectures worked with that. So there's still a lot of providers out there that are, modeling that architecture where they're doing NSXT with gateway firewall and no distributed routing or distributed firewall. That's probably the easiest to step into. That license is based on NSXT edge nodes and how many vCPUs you have
Right.
allocated. Then you can put in, up to 1,000 tier one gateways, I think, per edge node cluster or something crazy like that. So you can expand and grow that and scale it very well. And it makes your life simpler. And then you change your price point depending on whether you want to offer basic firewall or if you want to do advanced threat protection with ATP. And you just change your cost per vCPU allocated to edge nodes. Distributed
Right.
firewalling gets a little more expansive, a little harder to control, right? Because it's all or nothing based on a cluster, and so if you're going to enable it for one thing, now it's enabled for all tenants and across the entire cluster. So you can break up clusters to do that and license it per cluster. That's probably the best way to do the distributed firewall.
And we're just licensing at the cluster level, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So right, for your distributed firewall, it's an additional charge on top of your VCF core cost. So from there, you can take, okay, I have cluster A with 32 vCPUs, or sorry, cores per socket, and you can say, I'm going to pay for advanced threat protection and or distributed firewall in this cluster, but not any of the other ones. And then you can control those costs so you're not spanning it across your entire footprint.
Excellent. Well, lots of good work that you guys have accomplished. Lots of additional work and exciting changes coming down the pike. We're going to have to react to since we don't have clarity on everything. But really
Yep.
appreciate all you've done. And I think one of the things, as far as the change in these relationships in the CSP ecosystem around Broadcom is if you're going to be in the white label program and you're a registered tier partner, you're going to have to rely on a company like OTAVA to
Correct.
help you migrate, help you navigate some of these architectural changes, drive the licensing, and then the support side of it as well. So
Yep.
OTAVA will be extending support down to the registered tier partners. And with our background, with your depth of knowledge and our bench of engineers, we're in a really good spot to be able to help and make that transition and ongoing support for those clients. So great work. Looking forward
Correct.
to it, and we look forward to having you back. We'll have you
Well,
back.
thank you much. I'll come back as often as you invite me.
All right, Justin. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, you as well. Have a great one.